Yes, ma'am. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yes, ma'am. No, no problem, sir. All right. Okay. No, sir, I've never been interviewed. Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, I should probably yeah, yeah. I'm gonna be honest. I'm probably gonna be nervous at first, but if after a couple minutes, it'll be all right. To be honest with you, also, I don't know in what respect you'll be interested in this or not. But last night, after I kind of put it out there that you guys had contacted me, I was contacted by anonymous as well, and so they. Yeah, they told me to mention something, so I'm gonna throw it in there, man. If you put it in there, cool. If not, all right. Hey, I actually have like a Bluetooth headset. Hold on, let me go grab it. Oh, I can just put the earpiece in. What's that? Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, yeah. I just didn't know if it would throw anything off or anything like that. All right, hold on. All right, all right, excellent. All right, can you hear
All
me?
right, so let me loop in my colleague Drew here.
Yes, sir.
Stand by. Okay, Drew, are you there?
I am here.
Levi, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Hey Levi, how are you doing? Thanks for doing this.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me, sir.
Where are you right now? Are you back home?
Yes, sir. I'm taking a layoff right now from traveling. I come back home to rest up a little bit, reassess a little bit, but right now, yeah, I'm back in Indiana.
Okay, can you just tell me a little bit about, so I can describe you accurately, your age and what you do, and kind of like what's your life like other than what you've been involved with?
Yes, sir. Well, my name is Levi Hicks. I'm 26 years old. For all intents and purposes, I'm an absolutely unremarkable person in every respect, except for I have a true passion and belief that all men are created free and equal, and we were given a certain set of rights at birth. It's not assigned by any governing force, but that's what a basic human right. Um, I've never been involved with like no politics or nothing like that. Like I worked in a factory my whole life since I was 18. Most recently I worked at Boar's Head, but after my videos came out and stuff like that, and I had some backlash for that picture I took with that young lady on my Facebook. And that kind of ties into a lot of this too. Like a lot of white supremacist groups have a lot of issue with these things, obviously, and that's where we kind of get into discrepancies about being classified as white supremacists and stuff like that. But
So are you unemployed right now?
yes, sir. Actually, I'm suspended right now, pending investigation. To be honest with you, the whole thing seems insane to me because I was suspended off property time, without mentioning it, for practicing my First and Second Amendment rights. You know what I mean?
Put you on suspension while they investigate whatever it is they're investigating.
Yes, sir. I suppose there's been some, with everything that's going on, according to them, they said it was for my coworkers, best interest safety-wise. But, aside from that, this has kind of caused me that kind of situation, and I don't know.
Can I ask you about, since you brought up Facebook posts, let me ask you about a couple of posts that you just put up or have recently put up. One is of a cop getting his head blown off, and you don't say it, but the post says you need to speak to cops in their own language.
Yes, sir.
One is, we're burning down the wrong house, and you show the various legislative houses across the world.
Yes, sir. What I've kind of noticed, especially as I'm growing in kind of the public view, there's a certain series of responsibilities that aren't the same whenever you got kind of a more personalized Facebook. Honestly, it's really no deeper to me than it's just memes that get shared. I never endorse violence on anybody. In fact, you brought up those two posts. I also just shared a post a couple hours ago of a group of protesters that were standing between a police officer and a group of rioters. You know what I mean? A lot of the stuff, it can't be taken literal because it's online posting. But I am realizing that there is a certain sense of responsibility whenever people are starting to look through that now. So I am starting to pay attention to what I'm posting, and I'm not just sharing things for like my personal friends and people that know me on a personal level, because I don't want to put off the wrong image just based off of a post that was never meant to be taken literally or seriously anyway.
So just to be clear, the post of a cop getting his head blown off was not to be taken literally.
Absolutely not. I never endorse violence against another person. That is why I'm upset in the first place and why I began going to these protests. I would never in any concept recommend that anybody murder a police officer. That doesn't fix anything. All we know is more pain brings more pain. You got to start to heal at some point.
So tell me, which protest did you take part in, and why you had to travel to go there? Why did you travel to go?
Yes, sir. I initially went to the Breonna Taylor protest. I traveled because I went all that way down there because it was something that I felt compassionately about. To me, something something that was so preventable and such an obvious overstep. It was insane to me, and I felt so moved. And then to arrest the man because he had no idea who you were, I felt compelled that I needed to be there. And then you start seeing things like, hey, protesters saying police are attacking us, we're being peaceful, all this, that, and the other. So when you go and you see these things, that's all I was saying. Whenever I got there, for example, when I got to Louisville, I've never been to nothing like this. I'm not like an activist or anything like that. You know what I mean? I go to work and I come home. I didn't even know what to expect when I got there. When I got on scene, the first thing I did was we got trash bags and we began picking up trash. So as we were picking up trash and we started moving through and meeting people and speaking to people and all that, I had this young lady approach me and basically, I don't know if you read my that picture that I had shared or whatever, but when she basically says, this is crazy. She says, I'm standing next to a white guy with a big loaded gun, and I've never felt so safe in my life. When she said those words to me, it all made sense to me. And the whole time I was in Louisville, Kentucky, the entire time I was there, and the other Blue boys were there was no acts of violence. It didn't occur until we had left and all started going back home, that within the next half hour, we started receiving messages that, you know, there were white supremacist groups showing up, and cops were dumping out water, and just the videos that started getting sent to our groups and shared around our pages and stuff like that. But that was after we had already left the scene.
What is the Boogaloo movement?
The Boogaloo movement is an umbrella term for many different groups and militias. There is no, I can't say what a Boogaloo is for everybody, because that goes against what we stand for in general. Every group has their own overall ideologies and beliefs. The basic premise that we all stand for is that all men are free and created equal. What we stand for is the peaceful disassembling of tyranny on every level, between federal, law enforcement, and anything in between. We seek to do that peacefully. We know that there are many ways that, you know, change can come about that don't require writing, that doesn't require, you know, anything like that. The problem is you come across, and a lot of our negative press come across because there are those other groups that claim our name, especially now that you guys are starting to reach out to those of us that are trying to do positive work. We do have guys that go through and try to latch onto our name and our growing popularity and spread false messages. But you're gonna have, and you're always gonna have radicals in any kind of group that you have. You know what I mean? But we don't endorse radicals. We do not. You know, we try to have a zero tolerance. We absolutely have a zero tolerance policy with like racism, and any true calls to violence or anything like that would be met with immediate. No, you know, that's not going to happen. That's just not what we stand for. We're not aggressors, and we're not violent people. We're just regular citizens.
Why do you show up at these protest sites with long guns that you have just told me are armed?
Well, there's 2 points to that question. It's a matter of what we are legally allowed to do, and it also, for me personally, it serves a purpose. So the fact that I own a long barrel gun, the fact that I am armed at these protests, owning a gun does not give me the right to use a gun on somebody. I can have a weapon on me and it never be pointed against anybody else. My point is, even if I'm in a situation where I feel like I'm unsafe, where I feel like, you know, I'm standing against somebody who wishes me harm, that doesn't give me a right to attack them. I'm showing restraint. I'm showing that gun owners aren't the problem, that we aren't the problem. We're you know, we're not radicals. We are not extremists. Showing that we can restrain ourselves, even when prompted, is what this is all about for us. And it's also a good deterrent because, like I told you, I mean, you can't argue with the results. While we were on scene, at least in my experience when I was in Louisville, Kentucky, there was no violence. There was no. In fact, there was some actually got back and forth between some of the Boogaloo boys and law enforcement. There was some between protesters and law enforcement. Everything was all right. Yeah.
But that may be anecdotal. I'm asking you, why do you feel the need to show up with a gun that is loaded? Certainly that, you must agree, that increases the odds there could be some armed confrontation.
No, sir. If I never intend to point my gun at you, I mean, whether or not there's rounds in the barrel or not, it doesn't change the fact that I'm not taking the action of putting anybody in danger. At the end of the day,
if you don't have a gun, that completely decreases the chance of an accident or an escalation.
Well, the reason I would like to know at what point that George Floyd had pulled out a gun on police. I would like to know at what point all these videos where protesters are standing in crowds that the police are firing at live rounds. And I was in Indianapolis on Saturday night, and I'll tell you what, the police were firing live rounds right back at protesters. That's a fact. I was there. I mean, you got guys with bullet wounds in Louisville, Kentucky from live rounds, and obviously there's narrative set out that it's protesters, and there are rioters that are separate from the protesters. You got to understand that a lot of these protesters feel the same way about the rioters that everybody else does. And you ask me, why do I feel compelled to bring a gun? The story I just told you about that young lady where she looked at me and she said, "Do you know what it feels like to be black and knowing that I'm not in any danger with you?" Because it's not for my peace of mind. It's not to make anybody feel in danger. It's to make people feel calm. Ever since I've had a presence there with armed weapons, the narrative that you're suggesting isn't there. I haven't had anybody acting irrationally or afraid. I had people ask me about it, and I told them, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. Anything they wanted to know about it, I would explain it. I advocate, firearm knowledge. If you're going to own a firearm, you should absolutely get training with it professionally. Be responsible, you know what I mean? If you're a responsible gun owner, then there never is a risk for increased violence.
Lita, I guess what I'm trying to get from you is you chose to bring a loaded weapon to a protest.
Yes, sir, because it's my constitutional right, sir.
I understand that, but it is a little different than defending yourself in your home or defending against some opposing.
I feel like you're kind of using these lead words like defending and all that. Again, when did I take a defensive stance against anybody, or when has any boogaloo boy that you have seen taken a defensive or offensive stance against anybody? Well, our weapons are always on a sling. We are always following every legal rule in every state we go to. If the state has a no open carry policy, we don't open carry. We don't conceal carry. We follow the guidelines set by the states.
I guess I think we're not communicating. Maybe it's because of this technology. But I'm trying to get from you the real reason why you would bring a loaded gun to a protest and not an unarmed gun.
But that's what I'm saying. I've answered, and I just really feel like you're trying to lead me into a... Listen, man, at the end of the day, this is really kind of the main point Cream likes to make. There are groups out there who are activists and are known. We were reached out to by Anonymous due to, what we're doing because they see that it's good work. There are many people out there who aren't taking this stance against us, who aren't looking at us like aggressors and agitators, who are thanking us for our services. You see it all online. You can go right to my page and see where people are, all we get is love because all we show is love. We are love. I mean, ain't this really what it's supposed to like? You can't just look at somebody and automatically assume that, because I wear face coverings and I carry a weapon, I'm a criminal, I'm a violent man. Why? Because I'm practicing the rights I'm given. I just don't understand where the confusion is. I mean, you say, why do I feel the need to? Why should I feel the need not to? If there's no violence there and people are asking me, to escort them places and things like that, why would you want to deter a good thing?
Yeah. It's just, I'm just trying to understand because you mentioned at the beginning of the interview, it's so hard to categorize the Boogaloo movement.
Yes, sir, because it's an umbrella term.
I think it's hard for people to, for some people, I think it's hard for some people to understand why a guy with a loaded gun and a face mask is trying to convince us that he's at a protest for completely peaceful means. At the same time, he's putting up Facebook posts of a cop getting his head blown off.
Yes, sir. Like I said, dude, honestly, you're bringing up Facebook posts and suggestions of violence. We're there to talk about actual violence. We're talking about, I just don't understand the correlation. How you can say, on one hand, what I'm doing is more insightful than the inner act of police brutality in and of itself. How is that not the bigger issue here? Is my question. I'm trying
to understand why the two coexist together.
The two, what's that, sir?
The visual images that you are displaying and the words of compassion and peace that you are speaking.
So, the correlation, the Hawaiian shirts and stuff like that is just because, that's the label that was put onto us. You gotta understand, and a lot of this now, it just kind of ties in. People know what to look for and know who we are. And as I told you, the firearms, there is no hidden meaning other than it's just my constitutional right. And for me personally, it helps me spread a peaceful message. And I've never even had to put my hand anywhere close to the trigger or anything else like that. I've never been in a situation where somebody was coming at me in a violent manner or a hostile manner or a frightened manner, because when I approach, if I approach a law enforcement officer, my hands are up. I say, my hands are up, officer. If they say, I've never had a problem with a police officer at a protest. No, when I went to Indy, they actually thanked me and my boys that went to Indy to try to help deter people from looting. That's another reason to care, because we're not just going to the protests. We've been to the riots and stuff to help. And we prevent looting. We got our guys out there trying to stop looting, trying to put. I personally have a video out right when I was going to put out a fire that I didn't start. But again, the narrative that gets set out by a lot of the mainstream media outlets that puts out that we're this, that, and everything else, it makes a lot of these people that we're trying to help and trying to say, hey man, these are your stories, these are our places and stuff like that. Like, we're the ones that are going to have to pay for all this in the end. A lot of them guys are looking at us like, oh, well, these guys are this, that, and the other because of the narrative that is set by mainstream media. And the main focus on that seems to be the fact that we are there with guns. At the same time, I say, it's like, well, why do the police need to be there with guns? And obviously, that's not supposed to be a serious question. That's just that's a not hypothetical, but you know what I'm saying. That I don't literally mean to ask you. I'm just saying we all have our purposes to have it, but it's all legally protected.
What are your political beliefs, Levi?
I do not hold any particular political stance at all, sir. I'm disturbed by the actions of both political parties. I don't call myself a libertarian because I don't care what somebody is. I care about somebody's character. I care about who the person is inside. I don't care about what party they align with. I don't care about what color their skin is. I don't care about what their religious views are. The only thing that I really care about is what a person's character is and how they treat me as an individual. I do not align right wing. I do not align left wing. In fact, I know that there are some boogaloo groups that are claim to be right wing, but I can tell you the vast majority. And since again, boogaloo is an umbrella term, most of us don't hold any political swings, but we vary just like in any other group.
Yeah. What is your particular group? Can you describe it to me? Your Boogaloo boys? Are you all from one?
No, that's not my particular. Well, that's also my particular guys. I got friends from all over. I mean, like. So, like, my page that I'm on, like I said, there's so many different little small Facebook pages. Like, I'm on this one page called Southern Mujahideen. I didn't make the page up or anything like that. I'm just, like, that's just an example of it. That's my, like, group, my Facebook group. But there's so many other groups out there which is variant that, you know what I mean, that the people I link up with and stuff are pretty much just, like, I got friends from all over. I got friends... I had a buddy from Tennessee go with me to that Louisville protest. I had a buddy from Columbus meet up with me there, and then he went all the way with me to help me in Indianapolis. And we come from all over, man, in all different walks of life.
Yeah. And so you just get together on these Facebook sites and say, hey, let's all go to Louisville?
No, it's kind of more like I said something that I was going to do, and because I felt compelled to do it. And when there was, certain other people would be like, hey man, I'm passionate about that too. I'd like to go, and then that's just kind of how it happens. Sometimes the guys you just see other guys there in Hawaiian shirts and stuff like that. And that's really how you meet and stuff like that.
Yeah. Levi, let me ask you about where you're from. Newcastle, Indiana.
Yes.
Henry County, Indiana. 95% white, rural America. Why would a guy like you be involved in protests, basically, in a black community?
I don't even know what that has to do. Because they're people. Being black has nothing to do with it. Because of the majority of people that are around me have nothing to do with it. That literally has no bearing on anything that I do. A woman was murdered in her sleep. A man was charged wrongfully because the police did a no-knock raid. That's the important part. It doesn't matter. Nothing else mattered to me. I'm a human being, man. I feel compassion when somebody's killed, whether it be a cop, whether it be a white man, a black woman, or anybody in between. It hurts me on an emotional level, as I think it should everybody. But I feel like we're desensitized to these things, and it kind of makes a lot of people callous to a lot of this. And then there's a lot of like confusion and division. And it just doesn't get us anywhere. And I don't understand why we all got to play each other against each other. If I speak plainly the way I try to do and say, I love you, no matter who you are, no matter what the narrative set against me is. And I've had a lot of people, telling me how much they hate me and how they think that I'm making this up and how I'm inciting riots. And And then after I apologize to them and tell them I love them, I go up and I pick up, the trash off their streets. I go to their cities to help clean up, to help put out the fires, to give a shoulder to cry on, to listen. Sometimes that's all they want. Sometimes, there's plenty of times I'll just sit there and I'll just listen to a grown man cry and talk about, the things he's experienced. Sometimes that's all people need. Doesn't matter if the water black.
I anticipate you're going to have offense to the question I'm about to ask, but you could put out fires, you could pick up trash, you could tell people you love them without carrying a weapon and without wearing a face mask.
Yes, sir, I could, but... So here's kind of like my thing. If you're fundamentally just set on your biggest issue is I'm carrying a weapon, then nothing I say is really going to convince you or anybody else that what I'm doing is for good intents. You already have a kind of... and I don't mean any disrespect by this, sir. Please don't take me as being hostile. I don't take any offense to your question either, sir. I think everybody has some sort of pre-bias to a situation, and once you're kind of fundamentally set in a belief, I can't sit here right now without being able to sit with you face to face, man to man, and make you feel my convictions and my beliefs. And do you know what I'm trying to say? You're going to believe what you're going to believe because you hold fundamental beliefs that are true to you, and I respect that, and I appreciate that, and I just ask that you respect that to me, and the fact that I have shown that I'm going to. Because you don't see anywhere Levi Hicks is violent. That's not what you see.
It would just be, I think, human nature to see the optics of a situation. I don't know Levi Hicks, but if I saw a man with a face mask on and a loaded armed long gun, I would assume that this person was not there to give me a hug. Now that would be the wrong assumption, but I would say that most Americans would rather play the odds on that.
I would argue with most Americans. I kind of feel like the results would show, for starters, that a lot of people are listening to our messages, and you can get on social media. They're all. For right now, and again, and hopefully, after this, if people can hearing from my side, depending on what gets shown, I hope this does give an opportunity to open up dialogue and conversation, because you're never going to come up to a boogaloo boy at one of these meetings that you're like, who are you and what do you stand for? You're never going to come up to one that's going to be aggressive to you or anything else like that. We're open to the dialogue. That's what I'm saying. I thought that, especially even CNN, for example, is supposed to be more left leaning or whatever. So aren't you guys the first ones to talk about you shouldn't judge people based on base appearance? And isn't that kind of the problem, that you think I'm dangerous just because I don't look like you when I walk up? Isn't that part of the problem?
That's why we're here doing this interview.
Yes, sir. I agree absolutely. That wasn't meant to come off as hostile or anything like that.
No problem. Let me just wrap up a few things, and then I'm going to ask Kurt if he has any questions as well. But are you concerned at all about being lumped in with anarchists or Antifa?
I wouldn't even know how to be lumped in with Antifa. There's obviously a concern about being lumped in with these groups that are trying to claim my name, because it deters us helping people. When you spread a false narrative because of internet trolls and people and people that don't represent us as a whole, when we're trying to assist people, we offer people medical help, man. Some of us are doctors, some of us are trained army medics and things like that. When we're trying to get to people that aren't even rioting or protesting, and they really are hurt and are just trying to get home, it deters people whenever people are trying to attack us when we're walking, and we're trying to stop people from breaking stores and starting to help private business owners and things like that. And it makes people aggressive to us because they think that there's a lot of conspiracies out right now. You guys know that, everybody's believing some really wild things, and it puts us in danger, but even more, and it causes those situations that you were talking about putting us and putting people in danger and causing bad things. And the worst part of it is it slows the healing process for us overall.
Yeah.
If I'm reaching out like I am right now, that's what, and like you said, that's why you're doing the interview, to hear my side. I very much appreciate that, but that's why I'm doing the interview as well, because if I wasn't sincere, why would I even be wasting my time doing this?
Yeah. Kurt?
I think we about got it. And thanks so much for all your thoughtful responses here. Just a couple of points of clarification. Well, first off, let me just tick through a couple of real basic things that we make sure we get. So you went to protests in Louisville and Indianapolis, correct?
Yes, sir. So far, yes, sir.
Okay. And here's one thing, a point of clarification just on what, not even, let's just put Boogaloo aside for a moment.
Yes, sir.
Do you personally, in your beliefs, want the current U.S. government system to be overthrown in some way?
Absolutely not. I always advocate the peaceful due process. This is what we have voting for. This is what we have rules and regulations for. I do not support anarchy. Most Boogaloo boys do not support anarchy. Anybody that says they support anarchy hasn't been in the situations I've been in. They haven't been at these riots where it is true anarchy. It's speaking from a misinformed perspective. It's people taking hypothetical scenarios that aren't put into practice. We are not anarchists as a whole. I do not believe that people can fundamentally, we got to have basic sets of guidelines. I believe that.
So you are essentially are advocating for liberty and rights and achieving those things.
True freedom and liberty
through
for all
the
men.
analysis. Yeah.
Yes, sir. By peaceful means.
Okay. I really think we got it. Let's just confirm the spelling of your name, Levi Hicks, Levihicks. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And 26 years old, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, Levi, I really appreciate the time.
Hey, man, thank you guys for giving me a chance to speak. You know what I mean? I really appreciate it. A lot of guys don't do that. They don't give me a fair shake. And no matter what else, you guys sat here and were respectful to me, and I really appreciate that, you guys.
All right, take care, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Levi.
Hey, you
really,
too.
really do appreciate it.
Be safe out there, boys.
Thank you.